Many decades back, Pakistan struck oil, and now it is running out of it. Now you may be wondering, when did Pakistan have oil? And how can you run out of something that you never had? Oil, my dear friends, is a metaphor. Oil is a crucial resource that a lot of countries in the world have. Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, UAE, America, Canada, and so many others. It's a bargaining chip. It's an edge. It gives you a good control on the ecosystem around you. It gives you a competitive advantage. So oil, as a metaphor, means a competitive advantage which a country has. So what competitive advantage would a country like Pakistan have, which has always been on the brink of disaster for decades together? So in today's episode of Deep Dive with Sangram, we look at Pakistan from a strategic perspective. It is not to decode the current standoff between Imran Khan and the army, but rather examine Pakistan from the perspective of its fault lines. Today we look at how Pakistan made some strategic choices and as a result of which has gotten into a vicious cycle of problems which it is unable to get out of. And in the end, we may hint at how it can crawl itself out of some of these problems. And to examine this further, let's take a look at the map of Pakistan and travel back in time to 1947. Pakistan is surrounded by Iran to the west, Afghanistan to the northwest, India to the east, and China towards its northern tip. At one point in time, it was also close to Russia. Now this map, when viewed geopolitically, has been very significant for decades together. Back in the time in 1947, when India and Pakistan gained independence, Britain was a weakened power thanks to the World War. And it was time for America to step into the game. Now when America was looking at this entire geopolitical scenario, it had another rival in the region. And that rival was Russia. America was always scared that Russia would make moves towards the oil fields of the Middle East. It needed a player that could counterbalance Russia's power. And Jinnah saw this opportunity to be this counterbalancing party in the geopolitical scenario at that point in time. So much so that within 2 months of independence, the Pakistani government actually approached the US for a $2 billion loan for defense. And it was then that Pakistan struck geopolitical oil. And it exploited this geopolitical position extending up to today. And in time, it became the Silk Route of all shadow operations. And you will realize how this opportunism became the backbone of everything wrong that's ever happened with Pakistan. Because this opportunism made it a country which relied excessively on debt and foreign aid. And this money was easy money. This money was shadow money. And it was not just America that kept on giving Pakistan this easy money. Money was coming from Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, and later even China. Pakistan was getting into a habit of benefiting from the hostilities of other nations. US wanted a counterbalance against Russia. The friendly nations, which is Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Kuwait, gave money for religious reasons. So Pakistan never really had any incentive to build the economy on the same parameters that defined a good conventional economy, which is exports, manufacturing, services, agriculture, and so on. But the fact still remains that money was still coming in. And if money was coming in, then the big question is, what was the problem? Where was this money going? Because as of today, the country is in dire straits. Today in Pakistan, inflation is at an all-time high of 36.4%. There are severe food shortages. At a recent subsidized wheat distribution event, there was a stampede for food and people were literally chasing the food trucks on bikes. Pakistani rupee has slid down to 285 rupees to a dollar. There are power cuts and these power cuts are affecting industries.
Arcade in Pakistan, massive power outages tripled the country.
Pakistan's forex reserves have slipped down to 4.2 billion US dollars, which barely covers 1 month's imports. To cover up, Pakistan has stopped importing essential goods, which are again affecting production of critical industries like textiles and automobiles.
Every day, dozens of factories are closing, hundreds of our workers are becoming jobless. We even don't have the money to give our electricity bill. That is the reason that these factories looks like the graveyard of the machinery.
So why did things become so bad? The real problem of Pakistan is that the country itself is not interested in its own progress. Wait a sec, let me correct myself. The rulers of the country are not interested in Pakistan's progress. So that begets a question, who are the rulers of this country? Is it the governments? The same governments that could not even last for one single term ever since independence. All Pakistani governments have been controlled by family dynasties. For instance, the Bhuttos or the Zardaris control the PPP. The Sharifs have an iron grip on the PMLN. Imran Khan is synonymous with the PTI, and the Wali Khan heirs rule the Awami National Party. Most of these governments have been accused of corruption, and a lot of these politicians have spent ample amount of time in jail. Corruption is rife within the entire system. Prime ministers have been assassinated, including Pakistan's first Prime Minister, Liaquat Ali, later Benazir Bhutto, not to mention recent assassination attempts on Imran Khan as well as Pervez Musharraf in the recent past. Civilian governments have been replaced by military governments 4 times ever since independence. The worst part is seldom have the culprits been caught or even identified. So who is calling the shots over here? Quite clearly, it is the army. Most countries have an army, but in Pakistan it is said the army has a country. The Pakistani army is the richest corporate in Pakistan. It is richer than the Adani and Ambani enterprise put together. The total worth of the Pakistani army is at $321 billion. The Pakistani Air Force and Navy have their own Shaheen and Bharia Foundation, which are engaged in commercial activities. The army owns an estimated 12 million hectares of land, which constitutes 12% of state-owned land in Pakistan. Where is all this land put to use? Well, amongst various purposes, a lot of this land is given as land parcels in due recognition of the loyalty of senior officers in the army. Corruption is rife in the entire system. Here's a simple example. There was a recent case where 25,000 square yards of land was given by the state to the Army Welfare Trust for a mere 6,000 rupees. And the same piece of land was leased out to a commercial profitable establishment for 17.5 million rupees. All the profit went to the Army Welfare Trust and the loss went to the state exchequer. So the question is, where do these profits go? A lot of it go to enrich generals who live luxurious and lavish lives abroad. One of the Pakistani bloggers on his blog post had remarked that if you want to know why India is prosperous and why Pakistan is not, just look at the lives of their generals after retirement and you will get the simple answer.
Poor Pakistan's rich army is sitting on assets worth $26 billion.
Pakistan's focus on intolerant religious practices has led to the rise of thousands of madrasas all across the country. A small portion of them even focus on jihad and terror. The majority which don't still do not have any formal skills being taught in the madrasas. The focus is only on religious teachings. So, anyone who passes out of these madrasas does not have any real-world skills to participate in the economy. And hence, they have very little option apart from participating in some of the shadow operations supported by the army and various groups. So now it comes to a point where the oil is actually running out. And why? Because the geopolitical realities have changed. America has always been funding Pakistan. Its good fortunes began when America needed Pakistan during the Russia-Afghan conflict. But after the Russia-Afghan conflict ended, Pakistan's fortunes also ebbed. The fortunes opened up next only after 9/11. What happened after 9/11? Well, there were rumors that a lot of Al-Qaeda terrorists were hidden in Afghanistan. Pakistan had access to Afghanistan, and so the US money started to flow in again. These funds were part of a coalition support fund where America reimbursed Pakistan for expenses incurred as a part of its support for operations against the Taliban. And yet again, America discovered that these funds were being misused. Apart from being used for the purposes of its operations in Afghanistan, these funds were also diverted to creating problems in Kashmir. America also found a lot of these expenses overinflated, and all of these overinflated expenses were going into the pockets of the generals. Pakistan was slowly getting a very bad reputation for even running its shadow operations very sloppily. The fact that Mullah Omar and Osama bin Laden were also ultimately found in Pakistan did not really help its cause. Finally, Donald Trump saw through this and decided to shut the funding tap. Things were changing in the Saudi kingdom as well. It so happened that in 1979, there was an armed revolt in Mecca, where fanatical Wahhabi terrorists had stormed inside the mosque of Mecca. The Wahhabi terrorists held the people hostage for quite a long time. It took quite a while to flush them out, and these terrorists were eventually executed. But that entirely turned Saudi Arabia into a fanatical Wahhabi nation. However, when MBS or Mohammed bin Salman took to power, he realized that Wahhabism is not really helping the country. The backlash against Syria and the whole Al-Qaeda episode was not leaving a great taste in the mouth of the Saudis. Moreover, MBS also saw that eventually the country would run out of oil.
According to leaked diplomatic cables from the US Embassy in Riyadh, one senior oil executive has cast serious doubt over Saudi Arabia's oil capacity.
And he needed to make the economy independent of oil. And so he started a series of measures, including pulling back powers from the clergy and making the country more liberal. Women got more rights, women were allowed to drive, and he started wooing the West in order to make Saudi Arabia a modern country. And in this new vision of MBS, it definitely didn't make sense to keep entertaining a country like Pakistan, which was making a mockery of the largesse and the surplus funds that they were getting from Saudi Arabia. After all, on the one hand, Saudi was beginning to tax its own citizens, and here they were giving money to a country which was splurging it in subsidies and filling the pockets of its generals. And hence, Saudi also decided to start withdrawing its active support for Pakistan. Closer home, IMF was on a similar path. IMF has given loans to Pakistan, including bailouts, a total of 13 times. But this time around, IMF was taking it a little more cautiously. It demanded accountability. IMF had promised Pakistan $5.5 billion over a period of 5 years, out of which $1.1 billion was supposed to come in November. But we are in this month right now and the money is still not hit Pakistan. IMF is demanding increased accountability and also wants to see if the other countries are supporting it. The Saudis have withdrawn. Even China, who is the usual savior for Pakistan, has decided not to restructure its debt-related liabilities from all its infrastructure projects. Pakistan is clearly on the brink. So the million-dollar question is, what next? Pakistan needs to take a cue from the other Islamic country, Saudi Arabia. After all, Saudi Arabia was also fanatically Wahhabi. But it reversed its stance from Wahhabism the moment it realized that it is not helping the country and the economy. And here was a country that actually had oil, but which could clearly see the writing on the wall that one day it will run out of this oil, and hence started taking efforts to make the economy independent of oil. Pakistan does not even have real oil, but yet it continues to rely on the Silk Route of shadow operations. If Pakistan has to pull itself out of the mess, it has to start focusing on its real economy. But the problem is, as long as the army exists, nothing will change. The fight with Imran Khan continues. The reason? Imran Khan, by far, in the recent past, has been one of the most popular leaders in Pakistan, which is a threat to the army. And hence, as per latest count, Pakistan is already dragging Imran Khan in military courts. Imran Khan's party is almost disintegrated. Thousands of party workers have been rammed in jails and tortured till they make a commitment to leave the party.
Right now, the situation is such that all my senior leadership is in jail. Today, one person who was hiding was the president of my party. They grabbed him and they put him in jail too. So over 10,000 of my workers are in jail.
Pakistan is playing its favorite sport, deep diving into the abyss. My best wishes are with the country and a sincere appeal to see sense. And on that note, it's a goodbye from me, and I shall see you next week. I had fun deep diving into our next door neighbor and finding out about what are the problems that are surrounding us. If you liked the video, do like, share and subscribe if you already haven't done so.